I used to think my world was just my mother and Chloe Davis. She was the light from next door that broke into my cramped, suffocating youth. Then Alex Thorne came roaring in on his motorcycle and stole her away like it was nothing. One night, one accident, one phone call, and my life was crushed under the drone of summer cicadas. Also, she could walk away and escape. Years later, she's a star bathed in the spotlight, and I've dragged myself out of the mud. When we meet again, her eyes are full of shock. All I want to ask is, Chloe, in the dead of night, when you're dreaming, do you ever feel a single shred of guilt? The cloying scent of perfume mixed with alcohol was thick enough to drown in. I tightened my grip on a glass of club soda, an outsider hiding in the corner of the grand ballroom. The shimmer of silk, the clinking of glasses, the phony smiles and fawning words. None of it had anything to do with me. My name is Jacob Vance. To others, I'm Mr. Vance, the founder of this multi-billion-dollar tech firm, but I'm the only one who knows what kind of rotten, decaying soul is hidden beneath this polished exterior. Jacob, if you're bored, Stella Hayes's voice, laced with its usual thoughtfulness, sounded beside me. She's my executive assistant, my most trusted ally, but I didn't hear her. My gaze was pinned to a figure at the entrance. Under the brilliant chandeliers, the face I thought had blurred with time, the face I had deliberately buried in the deepest trench of my memory, was now painfully, piercingly clear. How could it be her? Stella seemed to notice the stir, her eyes following mine. Isn't that Chloe Davis, the actress who's been everywhere lately? I heard she. The name Chloe Davis struck my chest like a sledgehammer. My hand trembled, and the ice in my glass rattled with a sound that was sharp enough to cut. It really was her. She was here. She was more radiant than I remembered. Her sequin gown shimmered like fish scales, clinging to her perfect figure, setting off her snow-white skin and fear-engingered lips. She smiled gracefully, navigating the crowd that swarmed her, a perfect rose blooming in a garden of fame and fortune. But to me, that radiance was the flicking tongue of a viper, cold and deadly. A chill, a nauseating mix of hatred and panic, shot through my body, starting from the soles of my feet and exploding in my skull. I almost lost my balance. My blood felt like it had turned to ice. I clenched my fist, my knuckles turning white, my stomach churning violently. What's she doing here? She saw me. Our eyes met across the room. The smile on her face froze, as if someone had hit pause. A flash of panic crossed her eyes, quickly replaced by something more complex, and then she had the audacity to walk toward me. She parted the crowd as if nothing had ever happened, even trying to force a familiar, sweet smile onto her face. Her lips moved, as if she was about to say my name. Jacob, get away from me. The words tore from my throat, a raw, guttural sound that wasn't my own. My body reacted before my brain, stumbling back a step, as if fleeing a plague. I was so clumsy I crashed into a waiter behind me. The tray of champagne flutes shattered on the marble floor. Under her shocked, wounded gaze, under the stunned stares of the crowd, I turned and practically fled. Jacob, Stella's cry was left behind me. My heart hammered against my ribs, threatening to break free. The feeling of suffocation returned, worse than the perfume. I just had to get out of this place, away from her, now immediately. I stumbled out of the ballroom. The cold night air hit my lungs, and I could finally breathe again. Stella followed a moment later, draping her coat over my shoulders. Jacob, are you okay? She looked at me with concern, no longer the respectful employee, but a worried friend. I leaned against the cold metal of the car, gasping for air, unable to speak. My throat felt like it was clogged with hot cotton. Who is she? Stella's voice was soft, but cut through the noise in my head. I closed my eyes. Her face was there again, sometimes the innocent girl from my youth, sometimes the glamorous woman whose sight made me sick to my stomach. Someone who ruined my life. My voice finally came, dry and rough as sandpaper. A long silence filled the car, broken only by my ragged breathing. Stella didn't press. She just waited. Finally, she said quietly, I'm listening, if you want to talk. I opened my eyes and met her clear, steady gaze. She was right. For all these years, I had buried everything, carrying the crushing weight of the past alone. Maybe it was time to let it out. Her name is Chloe Davis. I began, each word forced through my clenched jaw. She was my neighbor. We grew up together, and then something happened. something that sent me straight to hell. The memories I had repressed for so long, memories I had locked away, broke free like caged beasts. They roared and surged, swallowing me whole. The past was a poison-tipped thorn lodged deep in my marrow, making every breath an agony. That year I was just starting elementary school. We lived in a tiny town, so small it had only one pothole, Main Street, lined with squat, dilapidated houses. My house was at the very end, a shack with a sagging roof, the plaster peeling off in huge chunks to reveal the mud and straw underneath. It was perpetually dark and damp inside, filled with a musty smell that never went away. My mom worked at the local textile mill. She left before sunrise and came home exhausted, her brow always furrowed. She rarely smiled or spoke to me. My only memory of my dad was a blurry black and white photo and my mom's occasional mutter that he died in an accident shortly after I was born. I was the kid with no dad. That was the label the other kids in town gave me. They threw rocks at me, spat at me, and mimicked the limp in my mom's walk. I was always on edge, a startled bird hiding in the darkest corners, fighting the world's malice with silence. Until she appeared, Chloe Davis. She was a sudden bolt of lightning that split open my gray, suffocating world. Her house was right next to mine, separated only by a low brick wall. The first time I clearly remember her, she was leaning over that wall. "Hey, Jacob, come out and play." She had the brightest eyes I had ever seen, like they held all the stars of a summer night. When she smiled, two small dimples appeared, and her pigtails bounced with every movement, lively as a fawn. She always wore clean, pretty dresses that seemed out of place in our grimy little town. I walked over shyly, my head down, not daring to look at her. "Here, have some candy." She held out a small, pale hand. In her palm sat a colorful Jolly Rancher. It was the first time I'd ever tasted candy. The sweetness spread from the tip of my tongue until it reached the cold, hard corner of my heart. From that day on, it was like my world gained color. The thing I looked forward to most each day was hearing her call my name from over the wall. We ran through the fields together, chasing butterflies with iridescent wings. We splashed in a murky creek, clumsily trying to catch minnows we could never hold. We sat under the old oak tree, listening to the cicadas, their noisy drone a strange comfort. She would chatter on about funny things that happened at school and teach me nursery rhymes I'd never heard. She also gave me a nickname, Stony. She said I was like a stone, quiet but strong. I loved that nickname because she gave it to me. Only she ever called me that. She was my only friend, the only light in my bleak youth, the warmest thing in my barren life. I thought we would always be like that, grow up together, share every secret, never be apart. I don't know when it started, but a strange, new feeling began to take root in my heart. I started watching her secretly, watching her laugh, watching her play, watching her when she was serious. That feeling, that crush, was like a tender green shoot pushing through the soil in spring, shy, fearful, and growing with cautious hope. I didn't dare tell her. I was too insecure. I felt like I wasn't good enough for her. I was afraid that if I said it out loud, I would scare her away, that I would lose my only light. I buried that pathetic love deep, deep inside my heart. I naively believed that as long as I didn't say anything, as long as I could be her Stony and quietly protect her, I could have her in my life forever. But the gears of fate have a way of turning in the cruelest direction when you least expect it. In junior high, Chloe and I were still in the same class, but there was someone new, Alex Thorne, the mayor's son. A boy who tore through town on a souped-up motorcycle, radiating a punk, stay-away vibe. At school, he was the untouchable badass, smoking, fighting, skipping class. He did it all. The teachers couldn't control him, and the other students were either afraid of him or worshipped him. And of course, some girls were into that. The way they looked at him was a mixture of curiosity and fascination. For the first time, I felt a powerful sense of dread, a panic I had never known before seized me. I was terrified that Chloe would be drawn to him too. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't that I couldn't stand her liking someone else. I was just afraid that once she was pulled into his bright, dazzling world, she would completely forget and abandon the little stone hiding in shadows. I once tried to subtly ask her, "What do you think of Alex Thorne?" Chloe just rolled her eyes, her face a mask of undisguised contempt. "Him? He's just a delinquent who doesn't know anything but how to stir up trouble. What's so great about him? Hearing that, the knot in my stomach loosened a little. I actually believed her. I thought she wasn't like those other shallow girls. But I was wrong, so wrong. After midterms, our homeroom teacher made a decision that changed everything. He assigned Chloe, one of the top students in the class, to tutor Alex, who was flunking out. And that's when it all started. The slow shift, the downward spiral, the final plunge into the abyss. At first, Chloe would frown at Alex's flirty jokes and deliberate advances, her annoyance obvious. But gradually, she changed. She started smiling at his stupid jokes. After school, she no longer waited for me by the gate. Instead, she'd hop on the back of Alex's roaring motorcycle, her arms wrapped around his waist as they sped off, disappearing at the end of the road. I was left to walk home alone, my feet dragging down the same path that was once filled with our laughter, but was now just a lonely stretch of pavement. The evening breeze felt empty, like it was blowing through a giant hole in my chest that could never be filled. When Chloe's mom saw me coming home by myself, she'd always ask, puzzled, "Jacob, why are you alone? Where's Chloe?" I'd have to fight back the sharp, needle-like pain in my heart and force a smile to lie for her. "Oh, Mrs. Davis, Chloe, she has to stay late for cleanup duty today." I knew I couldn't compete with Alex Thorne. His family had money and influence. He was handsome and arrogant, and he could talk his way out of anything. And me? I was just a poor kid from a rundown shack, a quiet coward who couldn't even admit he was in love. It seemed only natural that Chloe would fall for him. I understood all of that, but why did my heart still feel like it was being sawed apart with a dull knife? Why did it hurt so much I could barely breathe? Chloe's grades plummeted. At the final exams, she dropped from her secure spot in the top 3 all the way down to 30th place. The results hit the school like a bomb. Chloe's mom was frantic. She found me, her eyes red, her voice breaking as she practically begged, "Jacob, I know you and Chloe are best friends. You're such a good kid. Please, talk to her. Tell her to focus on her studies and stop messing around with that no-good Alex Thorne." Her lips trembled, her face etched with anxiety and helplessness. For days, the town gossip had been buzzing about her daughter and the mayor's son, and the rumors were making it impossible for her to even show her face in public. A million parts of me didn't want to go. I knew that if I went looking for Chloe now, I'd probably find her with Alex. What could I even say? It would just be another humiliation. But looking at her mom's pleading, hopeful eyes, the word no died on my lips. She had always been so kind to me, treating me like a second son. "Don't worry, Mrs. Davis." I finally forced myself to say. I'll go try to find her." I walked aimlessly down the familiar path outside the school. Chloe and I had walked this road together countless times, sharing our secrets and dreams. Now, there's only my solitary shadow, stretched long and thin by the setting sun. I prayed I would get lucky, that I wouldn't have to see the two of them together. That would be too cruel. By some twist of fate, I ended up at the boba shop Chloe had been going to lately. I looked through the window, and my heart skipped a beat. Alex wasn't there. Chloe was sitting alone in a corner booth by the window, head down, listlessly stirring the pearls in her cup. The last rays of sunlight fell on her, casting a hazy, melancholy glow. A tiny flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Maybe they had a fight. Maybe she finally realized what he was really like. I took a deep breath, mustered my courage, and pushed the door open. "Chloe." I tried to make my voice sound as normal as possible. She looked up, a flicker of surprise, quickly followed by avoidance, crossed her face. "Stoney, what are you doing here?" Your mom asked me to check on you." I sat down across from her, my nerves shot. The mention of her mom made Chloe's brow furrow and her tone became impatient. "What did she tell you now? Was it about me and Alex again?" "She said your grades have been slipping. She wants you to study." I tried to be diplomatic, keeping my voice calm and objective. "I know." Chloe looked down again, avoiding my eyes, and went back to fiddling with her drink. "She also said for you to stop hanging out with the wrong sort of people." I hesitated, but I said the most hurtful part anyway. I knew it might set her off, but I was clinging to a sliver of hope that it might wake her up. The wrong sort of people? As I expected, Chloe's head shot up. She was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, instantly on edge. She glared at me, her eyes filled with anger and hurt. "Stoney, in your eyes, is Alex the wrong sort of person?" I, I didn't mean it like that. I stammered, flustered. Maybe your mom just thinks he's a distraction. I mean, ever since you two got close, your grades have. She cut me off before I could finish. Enough, Jacob Vance. She used my full name. She had never done that before. You don't know Alex at all. What gives you the right to talk about him like that? She looked like a cornered animal, her eyes red as she stared me down, as if I were her enemy. I'm telling you, Alex is not the person you think he is. She pointed a finger at me, her voice trembling with emotion. He's actually really good to me. Her voice suddenly softened in a look I'd never seen before. A mix of shyness and sweet affection appeared on her face. Did you know he can fix motorcycles and radios? Anything that's broken, he can fix it. He's amazing at basketball. In the last tournament, he scored so many points. All the girls in our class were screaming for him. And he wrote me a love letter. A blush crept up her cheeks, her eyes turning dreamy. He said I was the most special girl he'd ever met. He said when I smile it's like the stars in the sky. Chloe looked down, tracing circles on the table with her finger, unable to suppress the smile on her lips. He also said that when he grows up, he's going to take me on a trip around the world on his motorcycle. The first time he told me he liked me, it was in the woods behind the school, she said, her voice full of wonder. The sunlight was perfect that day, falling through the leaves in golden streams, and it made him look like a movie star. He stood there, looking down, a little embarrassed. Even his ears were red. He said he liked me, and he asked me to be his girlfriend. Do you know how fast my heart was beating? I felt like I was floating, like I was going to fly away. I had been waiting for him to say that for so long. She looked up at me, her eyes shining. The light in them seared my own. Stoney, you have no idea how good he is to me. He'll go and tell off any girls who talk bad about me. He'll spend all the pocket money he saved up to buy me my favorite strawberry Laffy Taffy. Why? When I get yelled at by a teacher and I'm in a bad mood, he'll skip class to stay with me and do whatever it takes to make me laugh. She took a deep breath, her gaze sharpening. He's the first boy I've ever liked, and you, Jacob Vance, as my best friend, shouldn't you be happy for me instead of acting like my mother, lecturing me and talking bad about him? I just stood there stunned, as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head. I was frozen to the core. Every word she said was a sharp knife stabbing me in the heart, slicing my pathetic secret crush to bloody ribbons. So she had liked him for a long time. So she had been waiting for him to ask her out. So in her eyes, he was that good, that perfect. And me? Her, Stoney, who had been silently by her side for years. In her eyes, I was just a friend who didn't understand her, who only lectured her. Maybe not even a friend anymore. I don't know how I left that boba shop. All I remember is that the sky had grown dark. The streetlights cast a dim, sickly yellow glow on me, stretching my shadow into a lonely, twisted shape. My heart was broken, utterly shattered, with no hope of being put back together. After that fight, Chloe and I fell into a deep freeze. If we passed in the hallway, she'd walk right by, as if I didn't exist. After school, she was still on the back of Alex's motorcycle, her smile as bright as ever, and I was like a forgotten ghost, trailing far behind until they disappeared from sight. Day after day of her indifference caused the wound in my heart to scab over, to become numb. I started to accept it, to accept this cruel new reality. The only light in my life had been extinguished for good. I was going back to a world of only darkness and solitude. Just when I was about to give up all hope, ready to cut her out of my life completely, she called me out of the blue that night. I was lying in bed, staring at the large water stains blooming across the ceiling. A light rain was falling outside, and the air was hot and muggy, making it hard to breathe. Suddenly, the old flip phone on my pillow vibrated, the screen lighting up with a name I knew by heart, but it forced myself not to touch. Chloe Davis. My heart leaped into my throat. Why? Why was she calling me? After a long hesitation, my trembling finger finally hit the answer button. Hello. My voice was hoarse with anxiety. Stoney. Chloe's voice on the other end was choked with tears, broken and frantic. She sounded weak, terrified. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. At the coffee shop that day, I shouldn't have yelled at you. I shouldn't have said those things. She was apologizing to me. In that instant, all the resentment, hurt, and coldness that had built up inside me for weeks seemed to melt away. My heart softened completely. It's okay. I heard myself say, my voice almost gentle. I, I didn't take it to heart. Stony. Chloe's voice was still thick and shaky. Can you do me a favor? Her tone was desperate, pleading, like a drowning person grasping at a piece of straw. What is it? Tell me. The words tumbled out of my mouth without a second thought. If she was asking, I would do anything for her, no matter what, even after she'd hurt me so badly. I was just that pathetic. Can you? Right now? Can you come to the abandoned steel mill on the east side of town? Chloe's voice was shaking even more now, as if she was fighting some immense terror. The abandoned mill? What for? It's so late. Did something happen? My stomach dropped. A powerful sense of foreboding seized me. You'll see when you get here. Her voice was barely a whisper, laced with a heart-stopping panic. And remember, don't tell anyone, especially not my parents. Before I could ask anything else, she hung up. The line went dead. I shot out of bed, my heart pounding. Something was very wrong with her voice. She was definitely in some kind of trouble. Without a second thought, I threw on some clothes, grabbed my rusty old bicycle, the one where everything rattled except the bell, and plunged into the cold, wet night. The abandoned steel mill on the east side of town was far from my house, practically on the other side of Havenwood. It was a derelict place nobody ever went, and there were even rumors it was haunted. I pedaled furiously on the muddy, slippery path. Cold rain lashed my face, mixing with my sweat and stinging my eyes. The wind howled, chilling me to the bone. But I couldn't care less about that. My mind was consumed by the sound of Chloe's terrified voice. I didn't know what had happened, but I knew she was scared. She needed me. I had to get to her fast. Over half an hour later, breathless and exhausted, I finally reached the ominous, hulking ruin of the steel mill. Its massive, rusted gates were slightly ajar, creaking in the wind like a dying man's moan. Inside, it was pitch black and dead silent, except for the unnerving patter of rain on the dilapidated tin roof. I took a deep breath, pushed open the heavy gate, and stepped inside. The thick smell of dust and rust hit me. Chloe? Chloe Davis? Where are you? I called out, my voice low but urgent. No one answered. Only my own voice echoing eerily through the vast, decaying factory, raising the hairs on my neck. My heart pounded faster, my palms slick with cold sweat. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight, its weak beam cutting a small circle in the darkness. I moved forward cautiously, my feet crunching on gravel and debris. Suddenly, the beam of light caught a dark shape on the ground, a few yards ahead. It was crumpled in a heap, not moving. Chloe, I called out tentatively, my heart in my throat. I crept closer, the light slowly revealing the shape's outline. It wasn't Chloe. It was an old man in a dark blue security guard's uniform, lying face down on the cold concrete. And underneath him, a pool of dark, thick liquid glistened grotesquely in the flashlight's beam. I recognized him. It was Mr. Henderson, the old watchman. He was a widower with no family, and after the mill closed, he just kept living here. My mind went blank. A cold hand of fear clamped down on my throat. Mr. Henderson, was he dead? How could this be? I was shaking so hard. My legs gave out, and I nearly collapsed. A ball rose in my throat. Just as I stood there, paralyzed with horror, I heard the sound of hurried footsteps behind me. Several blinding flashlight beams hit my face at once. Don't move. Police. Hands where I can see them. Figures in police uniforms seemed to materialize out of the darkness, surrounding me in seconds. The dark muzzles of their guns were pointed right at me. I was frozen in terror, my mind a complete void. I instinctively raised my hands, not daring to move a muscle. What were you doing? I stammered, my voice trembling. What were we doing? A tall officer stepped forward, shining his light on my face, then on Mr. Henderson's body. His voice was cold and hard. We got an anonymous tip about a homicide. Looks like we caught you red-handed, kid. What do you have to say for yourself? Homicide? Red-handed? My eyes widened in disbelief. No, it wasn't me. I'm not. I tried desperately to explain, to tell them Chloe had called me, but the overwhelming fear and confusion made me incoherent. The words wouldn't come out. Save it. Cuff him. They didn't give me a chance to explain. Two officers grabbed my arms, twisted them roughly behind my back, and the cold steel of handcuffs snapped shut around my wrists. They shoved me toward a squad car, its red and blue lights flashing silently in the rain. The piercing shriek of the siren tore through the night, and with it, tore my life to shreds. Sitting in the back of the car, watching the blurred streetlights streak past the window, my mind was a chaotic mess. What had happened? How did Mr. Henderson die? Who killed him? And Chloe, why did she call me here? Where is she? Who was the anonymous caller? 1,000 questions swirled in my head with no answers in sight. I only knew one. I had walked straight into a perfectly laid trap. I was a murderer, and the person who had lured me into the trap had vanished. Cold iron bars, dim lights, and the foul smell of disinfectant mixed with mildew. I was handcuffed to the railing of a staircase in the county jail, the metal digging into my wrists, leaving angry red marks that burnt. I curled into a ball, trying to draw some warmth from the freezing concrete and steel. It was no use. My body was cold, but my heart was colder, as if it had been plunged into an icy abyss. I closed my eyes, trying to force myself to sleep, but last night's events played on a loop in my mind. Mr. Henderson's body in a pool of blood, the cops' cold guns and harsh commands, Chloe's terrified, pleading voice on the phone, and her last, "Don't tell anyone." Why? Why would she say that? Did she know something? Was she involved? No, impossible. This was Chloe, the Chloe I grew up with, the girl I had cherished for so many years. She would never. I couldn't let myself think about it. Every thought was another turn of the knife, another plunge deeper into despair. I spent the night like that, suspended in a fog of fear, confusion, pain, and a faint, desperate denial, my eyes wide open in the dark. The next day, just as the sky was beginning to lighten, the sound of heavy footsteps woke me from my stupor. "Get up." A cop came over, roughly unlocked my handcuffs, and hauled me to my feet. His face was blank, impossible to read. What's going on?" I asked, my voice raspy as I rubbed my sore, swollen eyes. Was it time for my interrogation? "We received an anonymous tip with new information. It proves you're not the killer." The officer's tone seemed a little softer than last night, but still cold and official. "We've already arrested the real culprit." My heart stopped. Who is it?" "The mayor's son. Alex Thorne." Alex Thorne. It was him. I stood there, stunned. My mind went blank once again. He hit Mr. Henderson. Then where was Chloe? Her phone call last night. "We got another anonymous tip last night," the officer continued, watching me. "They found blood and impact marks on Alex Thorne's motorcycle. We ran a comparison overnight, and it was a match. Thorne has already confessed. He was riding with Chloe Davis at the mill last night and accidentally hit Mr. Henderson." "Motorcycle? Chloe Davis? So they really were together last night. What about Chloe?" I asked urgently. "She said she was terrified and that Thorne told her to go home, so she ran." The officer paused, giving me a complicated look. "As for why she called you, she claimed she was scared and wanted you there for moral support. We're still investigating." Scared? Wanted moral support? The excuse felt so weak, so flimsy. An indescribable coldness and bitterness flooded my heart. "Sorry about last night. We made a premature judgment." "You've been through a lot," the officer said, a half-hearted apology. "You can go home now. We'll give you a ride home." I numbly followed the officer out of the cold, dark station. The morning sun hit me, so bright it made my eyes ache. I raised a hand to shield them. I was free, cleared of murder, but I felt no relief, no joy. Instead, it felt like an even heavier stone had been dropped on my chest. Alex killed someone. Chloe was there. She ran away. Then she called me, luring me to that horrifying scene. And right after, the police showed up and arrested me as the killer. Was it all really just a coincidence? The squad car pulled up in front of my dilapidated house, but the scene before me was a lightning strike that stopped my heart cold. Parked in front of my house was a gleaming white ambulance. A crowd of neighbors stood around it, pointing and whispering. My heart sank. A suffocating, terrible premonition washed over me. "Move. Get out of the way." I scrambled out of the car like a madman, shoving through the onlookers, fighting my way to the door. I saw 2 paramedics in white coats carrying a stretcher out of my house. It was covered with a white sheet. On the stretcher was a person. A roar filled my head as if something inside had exploded. Time seemed to stop. My hand trembled as I reached out and ripped back the thin, weightless sheet. "Mom!" A raw, inhuman scream tore from my throat. Lying on the stretcher was my mother. Her eyes were closed. Her face was completely drained of color, and a trickle of dried blood stained the corner of her mouth. Her body was cold and stiff. She was gone. Mom. Mom, what happened? Wake up, look at me. It's Jacob, Mom. I threw myself on her cold body, shaking her, sobbing uncontrollably. The crowd murmured with pity. Such a shame. That poor woman. I heard her son killed someone last night, but the police took him away. She didn't believe it. She was crying, screaming. She had to go to the station, that her son was innocent. They couldn't stop her, and then she just collapsed. The shock killed her just like that. Their words were poison-tipped daggers, stabbing me over and over, skinning me alive. The shock killed her. My mom. I had killed her. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I clung to her cold, stiff body, my cries tearing me apart from the inside out. Tears blurred my vision, scalding my soul. The paramedics and neighbors gently pulled me away. We're so sorry for your loss, son, someone whispered. But I couldn't hear them. All I knew was that my mom was dead. My only family, my only anchor in this world, was gone. I was a true orphan. I hated him. I hated Alex Thorne. He killed that man. I hated Chloe Davis. She's the one who lured me to the scene. She's the reason my mom is dead. I hated this goddamn world. Why was it so unfair? And I hated myself. I hated my stupidity, my weakness, my inability to see people for who they were. Why? Why did this happen? What did I do to deserve this? God, why are you doing this to me? I screamed at the sky, a sound of pure, bottomless despair as tears streamed down my face like a flood. After my mother's funeral, I was a walking corpse. I told the police everything, every single detail of Chloe's phone call that night, every word she said. I told them she was the one who told me to go to the steel mill. I told them it was a conspiracy, that she and Alex had planned it all to frame me. I sobbed. I raged. I wanted to tear them both to pieces. But the officer who took my statement just looked at me with pity and shook his head. Jacob, we understand how you feel. The pain of losing a loved one is immense. He handed me a glass of water, his voice gentle but firm. But the law requires evidence. You said Chloe Davis called you to the mill? We checked the phone records, and that's true. But that doesn't prove she was part of a conspiracy to frame you. Do you have a recording or any other evidence that she knew what was happening and deliberately lured you there? I shook my head numbly. In that moment, how could I have possibly thought to record the call? Based on your word alone, we can't take any action against Chloe Davis. She insists she was just scared and wanted your help, and that she had no idea what Alex planned to do next. And while Alex admitted to coming up with the plan to frame you, he also claims Chloe didn't know about it, that he just used her. As for the anonymous caller who implicated you, we traced it to a payphone. It's a dead end. The officer sighed. Jacob, I know this isn't fair to you, but based on the evidence we have, we can only prosecute Alex as the primary offender. He will pay for what he did. The law will see to that. As for Chloe Davis, we'll keep an eye on her if any new evidence comes to light. I didn't hear the rest. Evidence. Fair. In this fucked up world, there is no such thing as fairness. I left that suffocating police station, and I left that town that had buried my mother, my youth, and all my hope. Like a stray dog covered in wounds and filled with a bottomless hatred, I got on a bus to a city I'd never seen, and I didn't look back. From that day forward, Jacob Vance was dead. All that was left was an empty shell, kept alive by hate. The car moved smoothly down the empty streets, the city's neon lights flowing past the windows, casting shifting shadows inside. I had finally finished the long, painful story. The past I'd kept locked away for so long had been lanced like a boil, oozing out its foul poison, bringing with it a strange, morbid sense of relief. My throat was raw. I took the bottle of water Stella offered me and chugged it down. So you've always believed that Chloe Davis and Alex Thorne set you up and that it led to your mother's death? Stella's voice broke the silence, tinged with a sympathy she couldn't hide. Yes, I nodded, my voice terrifyingly calm. After my breakdown at the gala, and this complete confession, my emotions had settled, leaving only a bone-deep exhaustion and cold. There was no evidence, so to the police, my accusations against Chloe were just the hysterical ravings of a grieving teenager. It went nowhere. I gave a bitter, self-deprecating smile. After that, I left that hellhole and came to this city. I swore I would make something of myself. that I'd make every single person who looked down on me, who hurt me, pay the price. All these years later, I've done it. I went from a penniless kid with nothing to my name to the successful CEO everyone talks about. I have wealth, status, everything I never even dared to dream of. But in the dead of night, that hot, humid summer evening, my mother's cold body, Chloe's panicked face, Alex's arrogant smirk, they still haunt my dreams, a relentless nightmare that gives me no peace. The scar never healed. I just covered it with layers of armor, pretending it wasn't there. Did you ever find out who anonymously reported Alex and gave the police that key evidence? Stella asked softly, watching me. I shook my head. No. The police never said, and I never asked. My voice was flat and indifferent. It doesn't matter who it was. What matters is that Alex got what he deserved. I don't know his exact sentence, but for vehicular manslaughter and framing someone, even with his father pulling strings, he wasn't going to avoid prison. What mattered was that the demon who destroyed my life was punished. That was enough. As for the person who reported him, a random passerby with a conscience? One of Alex's enemies? Or maybe, a ridiculous thought flickered through my mind, but I snuffed it out instantly. It couldn't have been her. Why would she? So is that why you've pushed everyone away all these years? Why you've locked yourself up? Stella's gaze was fixed on me, her eyes filled with sympathy, understanding, and something else. Something I didn't dare to examine too closely. I fell silent, looking away from her and back out at the glittering cityscape. From that broken, hopeless small town to this concrete jungle, my life had been completely transformed. I was a lone wolf who had clawed his way to the top in this dog-eat-dog city through sheer grit and a reckless will to succeed. Along the way, I met all sorts of people, navigated countless betrayals and backroom deals. I became cold, suspicious, and unapproachable. I never lacked for women who made their interest known. They wanted my money, my looks, or my connections. But I was never moved. That devastating betrayal had utterly destroyed the part of me that was capable of love and trust. I was terrified of giving my heart away again, terrified of being stabbed in the back by someone I trusted, terrified of feeling that soul-tearing pain again. I built a fortress around myself with success and a cold demeanor, keeping everyone out. Except for Stella. She joined my team when I was first starting out, at my lowest point when I had nothing. I could barely make payroll, and the company was on the verge of collapse. It was her who stayed with me, working day and night, chasing leads, securing investors, pulling me back from the brink of failure time and time again. She's my most capable partner, my most trusted confidant. Without her, there would be no Vance Technologies, and there would be no Jacob Vance. I've always known the way she looks at me is different. It's more than just professional admiration and trust. There's something else there, something that feels warm but that I instinctively want to run from. I don't dare reciprocate. I'm afraid of tainting our purely professional bond. More than that, I'm afraid that my scarred and broken heart has nothing left to give her. But now, looking into Stella's clear, bright eyes that seemed to see right through me, hearing her gentle, steady voice, the wall of ice I'd built around my heart for years seemed to have developed a crack. Jacob, Stella gently took my cold hand. Her palm was warm and soft. What happened in the past wasn't your fault. You shouldn't punish yourself for the rest of your life because of someone else's mistakes. Her voice was so light, so tender, yet it felt like a ray of sunshine piercing through the gloom, reaching the darkest, dampest corner of my heart. You shouldn't be trapped in the past. You need to look forward. I looked at her, my mind hazy. She was right. For so many years, I had been living in the shadow of hatred and pain, a prisoner shackled to my own past. I thought I was seeking revenge, pursuing success, but really I was just punishing the helpless boy I used to be in a slow, self-destructive way. Stella suddenly leaned in and gently hugged me. Her body was soft and warm, with a faint, calming scent of gardenias. It was so different from the overpowering perfumes of the women at the gala. The fresh scent involuntarily relaxed my tense nerves. "Give me a chance and give yourself a chance, okay?" she whispered in my ear. Her words were like a spell, a key that instantly unlocked the door to my heart that had been sealed for so long. My heart jolted, then began to pound uncontrollably. I was transported back years ago to a shabby little office with a few old desks and flickering lights. I had just registered the company with nothing to my name and an uncertain future. I was running myself into the ground every day, desperate for investors and projects. Just when I was about to break, Stella appeared. She was applying to be my assistant. She still had the fresh-faced look of a recent graduate, dressed in a worn but clean business suit, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. But her eyes were incredibly bright, clear, and full of stubborn courage. At the end of the interview, she looked at me and said with, "Mr. Vance, please give me a chance. I know I can help you." The same look, the same tone of voice as now. I looked at the woman before me, who had shed her youthful innocence and become a confident, capable professional, but whose eyes were still just as clear. Her gaze was like a warm spring, accepting all my broken pieces and pain. For all these years, she had stood silently behind me, supporting me, accompanying me, never once leaving. Maybe I really shouldn't trap myself in the past anymore. Maybe I could try to hold on to this warmth right in front of me. The car was silent, filled only with the sound of our breathing, which was growing heavier. Slowly, tentatively, I lowered my head and kissed her soft lips. A few days later, I was buried in a mountain of paperwork, trying to numb myself with work, trying not to think about the nightmare that had suddenly reappeared in my life. The intercom on my desk buzzed. It was the front desk. "Mr. Vance, there's a woman downstairs who'd like to see you." The receptionist's voice was hesitant. She said her name is Chloe Davis. Chloe Davis. The pen in my hand stopped, digging a sharp black line across the document. She had come to my office. An overwhelming wave of irritation and disgust washed over me. My heart began to pound erratically, as if an invisible hand was squeezing it. I didn't want to see her. I never wanted to see her face again as long as I lived. "Mr. Vance." The receptionist was still waiting for my instructions. "Tell her I'm not here," I said, my voice ice cold, then slammed the phone down. Just as I did, my office door opened. Stella walked in, a knowing look on her face. "I hear the famous Ms. Davis is here to see you," she said. Her tone was teasing, but there was no humor in her eyes. I didn't say anything, just pinched the bridge of my nose wearily. "All right, I'll handle this." Stella came over and patted my shoulder, her voice filled with a reassuring strength. "You go wait in the lounge, don't come out." I looked at her, hesitating. That woman, Chloe, had twisted me around her finger back then. Now that she was a famous actress, she was probably even more manipulative. "Don't worry," Stella said, as if reading my mind, and gave me a confident smile. "I won't let her get anywhere near you. You won't have to hear a single word from her. Go wait for me. How about this?" I nodded, a warmth spreading through my chest. I stood up and went into the private lounge connected to my office. The lounge had a one-way mirror. I could see everything happening in the office, but they couldn't see me. I stood by the window, hands in my pockets, my face a blank mask. Soon, the office door opened again. A woman wearing a wide-brimmed hat and large sunglasses, completely bundled up, walked in. Despite the disguise, I recognized her immediately. Her posture, the way she walked, that back held straight to hide her nervousness. It was Chloe. Stella met her, a professional yet distant smile on her face. They began to talk. Through the thick, soundproof glass, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see their expressions. Stella remained calm and polite, but her attitude was firm, shaking her head from time to time. Chloe, on the other hand, was growing more and more agitated. She gesticulated wildly, trying desperately to explain something. At one point, she even took off her sunglasses, revealing a tear-streaked, pitiful face. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying or was trying hard not to. The same old act to win sympathy. She hadn't changed a bit in 10 years. They went back and forth, a silent battle of words. The tension in the room palpable. The minutes ticked by. Finally, Chloe seemed to run out of energy, or maybe she had finally accepted reality. Her head drooped, her shoulders slumped, and she silently put her sunglasses back on. She turned and walked out of the office, her steps unsteady. Her retreating figure looked desolate and helpless under the bright office lights. But I felt not a single shred of pity, only a twisted sense of satisfaction. Serves her right. She brought this on herself. Stella watched her leave, then turned and came into the lounge. She looked tired but mostly relieved. "Done," she said with a smile. "She's gone. I doubt she'll be back." I looked at her, my feelings a complex tangle. What did you say to her?" I couldn't help but ask. Stella shrugged. her tone as casual as if she were discussing the weather. Nothing much. Just made it clear that you don't want to see her, that the past is the past, and that you hope she won't disturb your life again. And what did she say? I pressed, hating myself for my curiosity. Stella glanced at me, seeming to choose her words carefully. She said she wanted to explain what happened back then, to apologize to you in person. She said she was young and stupid, that Alex Thorne manipulated and used her, that she didn't mean for any of it to happen. Stella paused, then looked me straight in the eye. Jacob, do you believe her? I was silent. Did I believe her? Did it matter? Even if she was manipulated, even if it was an accident, so what? My mom was dead. That fact would never change. Because of her accidental phone call, I was treated like a murderer, locked in a cell, and forced to endure the darkest, most humiliating night of my life. That fact would never be erased. My entire youth, the life I could have had, was destroyed because of her accident. That fact would never change. Could a flimsy, "I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to undo all of that," could it bring my mother back to life? Could it heal the wound in my heart that was cut down to the bone? Impossible. Never. All right. Don't think about it. Stella patted my shoulder again, pulling me from my swirling thoughts. It's over. She won't bother you again. I looked at her gentle, determined eyes and nodded, forcing the torrent of hatred back down. Thank you, Stella. For what? She smiled, a warm, bright expression. We're past that. She stepped closer, wrapped her arms around me, and held me. I'm with you now. You won't have to face this alone anymore. Leaning into her warm embrace, listening to the steady beat of her heart, the block of ice in my chest seemed to melt just a little bit more. I thought that by refusing to see Chloe, this sudden storm would finally pass. I thought I could continue to hide behind the warm shield Stella had built for me, to pretend nothing had happened. But life, that bastard of a screenwriter, always seems to have a surprise waiting for me the moment I let my guard down, and usually it's more of a shock than a surprise. The news about Alex Thorne came from Stella. She walked into my office one day with a printout, her expression grim. Jacob, I found some recent information on Alex Thorne. My stomach tightened. I looked up. What about him? He got out of prison a few years ago. Stella handed me the papers. He was given a heavy sentence back then, though I couldn't find the exact term, but his family pulled a lot of strings, and with good behavior in prison, he got his sentence reduced and was released early. I took the file and scanned it. It was basic information and a recent photo. The man in the picture looked nothing like the arrogant punk I remembered. He was wearing cheap clothes, his hair was greasy, his eyes were dull, and his face had the numbed, defeated look of someone who had been repeatedly beaten down by life. His parents. I asked coldly. They had nearly bankrupted themselves trying to get him out back then. I wondered what had become of them. His father died of a heart attack not long after he was incarcerated. His mother passed away from an illness a few years ago. Stella's tone was tinged with a sad irony. He's all alone now. Can't hold down a job, hangs out in dive bars and gambling dens, and is drowning in debt. He's a mess. A mess, huh? He got off easy. I tossed the file on my desk, feeling nothing. A scumbag like him ending up like this was exactly what he deserved. I couldn't even be bothered to waste an ounce of emotion on him. I see, I said flatly. You don't need to follow up on him anymore. He's nothing to me now. Stella nodded and didn't say another word. But fate, it seems, has a twisted sense of humor. The more I tried to forget him like a piece of trash, the more he seemed to haunt me. That night, I had just finished a long, exhausting business dinner. I told my driver to go home. I wanted to walk for a bit to clear my head from the alcohol. The late autumn wind was cool on my face, cutting through some of the haze. I pulled my custom cashmere coat tighter, stuck my hands in my pockets, and walked slowly down the street. The streetlights stretched my shadow long and lonely on the cold pavement. Most of the shops were closed, except for a few 24-hour convenience stores and neon-lit bars. As I was passing a particularly grimy-looking dive bar, a stumbling, reeking figure burst out and slammed right into me. The foul stench of cheap booze and sweat hit me instantly. I frowned and took a step back, trying to get away. What the hell? Watch where you're. The man started cursing, then looked up. When his eyes met mine, the profanity died on his lips. His bloodshot eyes widened in surprise, which quickly morphed into a complex glare of jealousy and venom. Well, look who it is. If it isn't the great and powerful Mr. Vance, a slurred, sarcastic voice sneered. I looked closer, and my heart seized. The man in front of me was wearing a wrinkled, grease-stained t-shirt. His hair was a mess, his face was covered in stubble, and he was so thin his eyes seemed to sink into his skull. But I recognized him in an instant. Alex Thorne, the devil I would recognize even in ashes. The man who had single-handedly destroyed my life. What was he doing here? A volcano of rage, suppressed for years, erupted in my chest. Blood rushed to my head, a roaring in my ears. I fought the urge to smash his face in. My fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. Alex Thorne. I ground out his name through my teeth, my voice devoid of any warmth. Mr. Vance remembers me? I'm honored, truly honored. Alex grinned, revealing a set of teeth stained yellow from cigarettes and alcohol. He reached out a grimy hand, trying to sling an arm over my shoulder with a disgusting familiarity, as if we were old friends. I jerked to the side, dodging his touch with revulsion. Alex's hand froze midair. The smile on his face faltered for a second before twisting into something even uglier. Oh, look at Mr. Big Shot now. Too good for us poor folk, are you? He looked me up and down, taking in my expensive coat and watch, his eyes practically dripping with envy and greed. Man, talk about different fates. Back in school, who the hell were you, Jacob? Just a loser trailing behind me, not even worthy of shining my shoes. And look at you now, a big shot while me. His voice suddenly rose, filled with resentment and poison. I took the goddamn fall for you. I rotted in prison for years. I get out, my parents are dead, my home is gone. I have nothing. Took the fall for me. Hearing those shameless words, I couldn't contain my fury any longer. Alex Thorne, you have the goddamn nerve to say that. I lunged forward, grabbed the collar of his greasy shirt, and slammed him against the brick wall behind him. His head hit the wall with a dull thud. Alex cried out in pain, the alcohol wearing off fast. His face filled with terror. Jacob, what are you doing? He struggled, but his body, wasted from years of drinking, was no match for mine. What am I doing? I stared into his terrified eyes, my voice a low snarl. I want to rip that lying mouth off your face. I want to tear out that filthy heart of yours and see what color it is. You were the one who hit Mr. Henderson. You were the one who cooked up that insane plan to frame me. You're the reason my mom is dead. You destroyed everything. My voice trembled with rage. What right do you have to say you took the fall for me? Alex was terrified by the murderous look in my eyes. He stammered, unable to speak. Let me tell you something, Alex. I leaned in close, my lips almost touching his ear, my voice a cold whisper only he could hear. You can never repay what you owe me. Your parents are dead? That's karma. You're living like a dog now? You deserve it. You let me go. Alex thrashed, sweat pouring down his face from pain or fear, I couldn't tell. Jacob, don't think you're so great just because you have money now. I'm telling you. He seemed to have been pushed to the edge, his eyes turning venomous again as he started shouting nonsense. You spent all that time licking Chloe Davis's boots like a pathetic mutt, and for what? All I had to do was snap my fingers, and she came running. I took her to that abandoned mill for fun, and we accidentally hit that old bastard. When it happened, I panicked. I said we should frame you, and she was standing right there. She didn't say a single word against it. She was the one who offered to call you to lure you over. If it wasn't for her phone call, how do you think the cops would have found you so fast, huh? You're the biggest fucking idiot in the world. You got sold out by the girl you were in love with, and you didn't even know it. Haha. Alex's crazed laughter was sharp and grating, like a rusty saw cutting through my nerves. Chloe was standing right there. She didn't object. She offered to call and lure me over. Alex's words were like thunderclaps, exploding in my mind, shattering the last tiny illusion I had about Chloe. So that was the truth. I always thought she was just manipulated by Alex, that she had made a mistake out of fear. But I never imagined she was an accomplice from the beginning. She was an accomplice, a rage more violent, more destructive than anything I had ever felt consume my reason. You son of a bitch, Alex. I roared, and my fist flew, smashing into his face. Art. Alex screamed as blood exploded from his nose. I lost control. I hit him again and again, pounding his disgusting face. I must have been out of my mind to ever fall for a snake like her. The only thing I regret is not putting you in the ground myself when you got out of prison, you piece of scum. Fud fud fud. The sickening sound of my fists hitting flesh mixed with Alex's pig-like squeals and pleas for mercy echoed in the quiet street. I don't know how long I hit him until he was a limp, boneless heap on the ground, barely conscious, only able to moan. My chest heaved. My knuckles were slick with his warm, sticky blood. I looked down at the dog-like figure on the pavement, and the violent rage inside me finally began to subside. Alex, remember this. My voice was cold and cruel, like a judgment from hell. This is just the interest. I'm going to collect everything you owe me, piece by piece. I let go and his head dropped to the concrete. I stood up, straightened my wrinkled coat, and took out a handkerchief to meticulously wipe the blood from my knuckles, as if I had just squashed a disgusting bug. I gave one last look at the unmoving body on the ground, my eyes empty of pity, then I turned and walked away into the darkness. Behind me, I thought I could hear the sound of sirens approaching, but it had nothing to do with me anymore. The next morning, I was woken by the frantic ringing of my phone. The hangover and last night's violent outburst had left me with a splitting headache. I irritably grabbed the phone without looking. Jacob, there's been an incident. It was Stella, her voice urgent. You need to see the news. My heart dropped. That bastard Alex, did I kill him last night? I fought through the headache and opened a news app on my phone. In an instant, several bold, sensational headlines exploded in front of my eyes. Actress Chloe Davis attacked at fan event, stabbed in abdomen in critical condition. Attacker identified. Former lover and convicted killer from decades-old case. Shocking new details. Cold case reopened as police investigate. The article was accompanied by blurry photos from a scene. A man being restrained by security guards. What looked like blood on the floor, chaos everywhere. Another photo showed Chloe on a stretcher being loaded into an ambulance. Her face pale, her eyes closed. Chloe stabbed by Alex? What the hell was going on? I clicked on a detailed report and scanned it quickly. Apparently, during a fan meeting greet that morning, Alex had rushed the stage like a madman with a fruit knife and stabbed Chloe in the stomach, while screaming things like, "Bitch, and you ruined my life." Security had tackled him, and he was arrested on the spot. Chloe was rushed to the hospital. Her injuries were serious, but she was expected to live. In his initial questioning, Alex confessed to the stabbing, claiming it was revenge. More shockingly, he told the police that the old murder case had a hidden story, that he had been framed by Chloe. The report mentioned that the police were officially reopening the old case and would be calling in all related parties, including me, for questioning. My head was spinning. That lunatic, Alex. He actually attacked Chloe, and now he was turning it around, saying she framed him. That was a bold, vicious lie. Just then, my phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello, is this Mr. Jacob Vance? This is the Chicago Police Department Homicide Division. We need you to come down to the station to answer some questions regarding the assault on Chloe Davis and the case of a Mr. Henderson in Havenwood, Pennsylvania. The voice on the other end was serious and official. I understand. I'll be right there. I hung up and rubbed my throbbing temples. It was finally here, the thing I had been running from. This time, there was no escape. I had to face it, not just for the police, but for me. I had to know the goddamn truth. How much of what Alex said last night was real? What role did Chloe really play in all of this? I quickly got ready, skipping breakfast, and drove straight to the police department. Stella called, offering to come with me. No, I told her. I'm going alone this time. Some things you have to face by yourself. I couldn't hide behind her forever. At the station, a young officer led me to a small interrogation room. A few minutes later, an older, experienced-looking detective with sharp eyes walked in and sat across from me. Mr. Vance, thank you for your cooperation. The detective began, his voice calm but authoritative. We'd like to ask you some questions about the assault this morning and the old case involving Mr. Henderson. I nodded. I'll tell you everything I know. Good, the detective nodded. According to our records, you were initially a suspect in the death of Mr. Henderson, but you were cleared after Alex Thorne confessed and an anonymous informant provided key evidence. Is that correct? Yes. At the time, did you know who that anonymous informant was? The detective's eyes were locked on me. I paused, then shook my head. No, the officers on the case never told me. He didn't seem surprised. In his interrogation today, Alex Thorne claimed that he and Chloe Davis hit Mr. Henderson together and that it was Chloe's idea to frame you. He also claims she was the one who called to lure you to the scene. What were your thoughts on that? My heart ceased, my breath caught in my throat. This was it, the key question. I tried to calm myself, then recounted what Alex had screamed at me last night, along with what I remembered from that time as objectively as I could. I told him about the terror in Chloe's voice on the phone, how she told me not to tell anyone, and how the police arrived almost immediately after I got there. The detective listened silently, occasionally exchanging a look with a younger officer taking notes. When I was finished, he paused for a moment, then spoke, and his words shattered my world. Mr. Vance, based on new evidence, a review of the original case file, and re-interviews with involved parties, we've been able to piece together what really happened that night. It's true that Alex Thorne was driving the motorcycle with Chloe Davis when he accidentally hit and killed Mr. Henderson. After the incident, Alex Thorne panicked and, in an attempt to save himself, did plan to frame you. However, the detective paused, his eyes fixed on mine. Chloe Davis was not aware of his plan and did not participate in the framing. The reason she called you was because she was terrified and in a state of shock, instinctively reached out to you for help. Telling you not to inform anyone was also out of fear that the situation would escalate and she would be implicated. The anonymous caller who reported you was in fact a friend of Alex's, instructed to do so to make you the primary suspect. However, the detective's tone shifted. Shortly after you were brought in for questioning, we received a second anonymous phone call. This informant correctly identified Alex Thorne as the real killer and provided crucial evidence, the exact location and description of the motorcycle he used. It was because of that tip that we were able to quickly locate Alex, find the incriminating evidence on the vehicle, and secure his confession. My mind went blank. I couldn't think. A second anonymous tip? Crucial evidence? Who? Who was the informant? My voice trembled. The detective looked at me and said a name. Based on our technical analysis and Chloe Davis's own testimony today, the anonymous informant who reported Alex Thorne was Chloe Davis. Chloe Davis. It was her. She reported Alex. She gave them the evidence. The truth hit me like a bolt of lightning, leaving me stunned and speechless. How could it be her? If she was the one who reported him, why didn't she ever tell me? Why, after all these years, did she never once try to explain? 1,000 questions swirled in my head, a chaotic mess. Our theory, the detective continued, is that after Chloe learned you had become a suspect, she understood Alex's true nature. Perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of fear of what Alex might do to her later, for a number of complex reasons. In a state of extreme fear and conflict, she chose to report him anonymously. Of course, this doesn't completely absolve her of her initial mistakes. For instance, she failed to report the crime immediately and, knowing a man was dead, still led you to the scene, which caused you immense harm and trauma. We will assess those actions according to the law. The detective's tone softened slightly. Mr. Vance, what happened back then was complicated. Chloe Davis made mistakes, but they weren't born from the kind of malice Alex Thorne described. It was a tragic mix of teenage recklessness, fear, and weakness. As for Alex Thorne, between the assault charge and the re-examined charges of vehicular manslaughter, fleeing the scene, and perjury, he will face the full extent of the law. No one can save him this time. I sat there, unable to process anything. This sudden revelation had completely upended the reality I had lived in for more than a decade. I had always believed Chloe was the woman who had indirectly killed my mother, the snake who had betrayed and framed me. I had focused all my hatred on her, making her the target of my revenge. And yet, in my darkest hour, when I was alone and accused of murder, it was her. She was the one who reported the real killer, who gave the police the evidence that cleared my name. Her motives might not have been entirely pure. It might have been more about self-preservation or fear, but she did it. The knowledge hit me like a punch to the gut, a dizzying mix of emotions, bitter, sweet, sour, and salty all at once. The hatred was slowly dissolving, replaced by something far more complex, something I couldn't name. It felt absurd, ironic, and strangely, underneath it all, there was a faint, aching sorrow I didn't want to admit was there. Mr. Vance, the detective's voice pulled me back to reality. We have a clear picture of the old case now. Chloe Davis is still in the hospital, but she is in stable condition. She has requested to see you. Are you willing to see her? The hospital's antiseptic smell was thick and nauseating. I stood outside the ICU, looking through the glass at Chloe lying in the hospital bed. Her face was as white as the sheets, her lips were chapped, and she was hooked up to a web of tubes and monitors that beeped steadily. The dazzling actress was gone, replaced by a woman who looked as fragile as a porcelain doll. It was hard to reconcile the dying woman before me with the bright, vibrant girl from my memory or the glamorous star from the gala. My feelings were a tangled mess. Did I hate her? Not so much anymore. The moment I learned that she was the one who had cleared my name, the towering mountain of hatred that had sustained me for over a decade collapsed like a popped balloon, leaving only a hollow emptiness. Could I forgive her? No, I could never do that. I would never forget my mother's cold body in my arms, or the bone-chilling cold and despair of that night in jail. That damage was real, and it could never be repaired. Maybe the detective was right. What happened back then was a mess of teenage impulses, fear, and weakness. She was wrong, but she wasn't a monster. And me? For a decade, I had lived in a prison of my own making, using her as a target for my hate, arming myself with coldness and success, and in the process I had missed out on everything else life might have had to offer. Mr. Vance, Miss Davis is awake. She said she'd like to see you, a nurse said softly. I took a deep breath, nodded, and pushed open the heavy door. The room was quiet except for the monotonous beeping of the machines. Chloe slowly opened her eyes. When she saw me, her expression flickered with surprise, then dimmed, filling with guilt and pain. Stoney. Her voice was so weak it was barely a whisper. You finally came to see me. I walked to her bedside, pulled up a chair, and sat down, my gaze calm. Some things have to be faced, to be put to rest. My voice was surprisingly steady, like the surface of a still pond. Not just for you, for me, and for the people I loved. Chloe's eyes instantly filled with tears, which streamed down her pale cheeks. I'm sorry, Stoney. I'm so sorry. She choked out, repeating the same useless words. I know it's too late. I know I was wrong, so wrong. Her lips trembled as she forced out the broken phrases. Let me finish, I said, cutting off her pointless explanations. They didn't matter to me anymore. I looked at her, my eyes devoid of warmth, as if I were telling someone else's story. Chloe, do you know that for a very long time, I lived in a world of pure hatred? My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room, each word clear and sharp. I hated you. I hated Alex Thorne. I believed that the two of you conspired to ruin my life and kill my mother. I left our town, came to this city, and clawed my way to the top for one reason: to one day stand before you both and make you pay a terrible price for what you did. Chloe covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking with silent, violent sobs. I ignored her and continued, my voice flat. But a little while ago, the police told me that the person who anonymously reported Alex Thorne, the one who gave them the key evidence, was you. Chloe's head shot up, her tear-filled eyes staring at me, full of shock and a tiny, flickering hope. So, I twisted my lips into a cruel smile. I suddenly realized that my hatred for the last decade has been a kind of joke. I've spent all this time casting myself as the victim, blaming all my misfortune on your betrayal. But I forgot. My gaze fell on her pale face, my tone turning sharp as a razor. The person who really got my mother killed? It might not have been you. It might have been me. Chloe's pupils constricted. She looked at me in disbelief. It was me. I repeated, my voice filled with a self-lacerating clarity. It was my own stupid, pathetic teenage crush that made me lose all common sense. I knew you were getting close to Alex. I saw how you were changing, but I still held on to some stupid fantasy about you. Even after you tore me to shreds in that coffee shop. The second you called me, crying for help, I ran right into Alex's trap like an idiot, without a moment's hesitation. I believed every word he said. You told me to come. I came. You told me not to tell anyone, and I kept my mouth shut. I acted without thinking, without considering the consequences, and I made the dumbest, most irrational decision of my life. It was my own foolishness, my own blindness that led to that tragedy. The fault, in the end, was mine. I looked at her, and the adoration and obsession of my youth were gone, replaced by a profound, chilling distance. Chloe, you were once like the sun in my life. You lit up my lonely, gray youth. Back then, I naively thought that just by being near you, I could feel your warmth. But I forgot that the sun burns. For a pathetic moth like me, flying too close doesn't lead to warmth. It leads to being burned to ash. After saying all that, I felt the massive weight I had been carrying for years finally lift. An unprecedented sense of lightness washed over me. I stood up, and without looking at her again, I walked toward the door. My hand was on the doorknob when I stopped. I didn't turn back, but I added one last thing. By the way, the police said you were the one who reported Alex. I don't know what you were thinking. Maybe it was self-preservation. Maybe it was a guilty conscience. But in the end, you gave him the evidence, and he was punished. My mother's death, your phone call, you getting stabbed, and you reporting him. I paused, then let out 3 final words. We're even. Between us, all the grudges, the love, the hate. It was over. Wiped clean. From now on, you are you and I am me. We go our separate ways. We are nothing to each other. I gave a bitter laugh, opened the door, and walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard Chloe's stifled, desperate, and grief-stricken sobs. The sound was like a dull knife scraping across my heart, leaving a shallow mark, but it was quickly covered over by a more powerful feeling: release. Stepping out of the oppressive hospital building, the sunlight was so bright it made me squint. It felt as if I had just undergone a long and painful surgery to remove the tumor called the past from my heart. Under the sun, a familiar figure stood quietly in the distance, smiling at me. It was Stella. She didn't ask how it went, didn't offer any words of comfort. She just held out her hand. I walked over and took it. Her hand was warm. Her smile was brighter than the sun. "Let's go, Jacob," she said. "Let's go home." I nodded, squeezed her hand tightly, and together we walked into the light. I knew my life wasn't just beginning. It was, in this moment, truly being reborn. I didn't deliberately follow the news about Alex and Chloe, but updates still trickled in through news alerts and from Stella. Alex Thorne was sentenced to life in prison for the assault combined with the old charges of vehicular manslaughter, fleeing the scene, and perjury. He was finished. There would be no second chances. He would spend the rest of his life behind bars. If his long-dead parents could see him now, I wonder what they would think. Maybe this was its own kind of delayed justice. As for Chloe, she survived the attack, but her career as an actress was over. The scandal was too great. The old murder case being dredged up, even with the police clearing her of malicious intent and acknowledging her role in reporting Alex, was a fatal blow. In the court of public opinion, accessory after the fact, indirectly responsible for her friend's mother's death, manipulated her childhood sweetheart's trust. The labels stuck to her like glue. Her sordid history with Alex was dragged out into the open, and in court, he had smeared her name with every lie he could think of to save himself. Overnight, she went from a beloved star to a pariah. Endorsements were dropped, roles were recast, her agency abandoned her, and her fans turned on her. Everything she had, the fame, the glamour, the future, vanished. I heard that after she was discharged from the hospital, she quietly left the city and was never seen in public again. Some said she went back home, some said she moved abroad. The rumors flew, but none of them mattered to me. Sometimes I think of her, the girl leaning over the wall, her smile as bright as a star. The teenager in the coffee shop spitting venom to defend Alex Thorne. The woman in the hospital bed, her face streaked with tears of regret. There's no hate left, no love either, just a faint, detached sense of pity, the way you might feel for a stranger who made all the wrong choices. Our lives had diverged on that hot summer night. This was just the dust settling, each of us left to deal with the consequences of our actions. As for me, after finally shedding the shackles of the past, I felt lighter than I had in years. My relationship with Stella moved naturally to the next stage. She was still my most trusted partner at work and my warmest comfort at home. We ran the company together, navigated the treacherous waters of the business world, and enjoyed the small, simple moments of everyday life. We were like any other couple. We'd see a movie on the weekend, try a new restaurant, or just stay in, reading and talking. Her presence was a steady, warm light that chased away the last of the shadows in my heart, teaching me how to love and be loved again. I was no longer the Jacob who lived for revenge, no longer the Mr. Vance who hid behind a mask of cold indifference. With Stella, I could let down my guard and be my true, sometimes vulnerable self. I knew that no matter what happened, she would be there, supporting me. We didn't have a big wedding. On a sunny afternoon, we just gathered a few of our closest friends for a simple dinner to announce we were together. After all the storms, my life had finally found its way to calm, warm waters. Sometimes I stand at the massive floor-to-ceiling window in my office, looking down at the bustling city below. I think about that distant small town, that dilapidated house, that quiet, insecure boy. If the accident had never happened, if Alex and Chloe had never been part of my life, what would it be like? Maybe I would have ended up like most of the other kids in town. School, job, marriage, kids, a predictable, unremarkable life. There would have been no tragedy, no decade of hatred, but also none of today's success and wealth. But there are no what-ifs in life. Fate tested me in the cruelest way possible. It forged me. The pain, the hatred, the anger, it all became the fuel that drove me to climb higher, that made me the stronger, more grateful person I am today. Let the past die with yesterday. Let the future be born today. I turned around and saw Stella standing in the doorway with a cup of coffee, smiling at me. Stella is a person who makes me happy. The sunlight streamed through the window, wrapping her in a soft, warm glow. She was beautiful. I walked toward her, took the coffee from her hand, and pulled her into a gentle embrace. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "I was thinking," I said, leaning down to kiss her forehead, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "What's for dinner tonight?" Outside, the sun was shining and my future was just beginning. Epilogue, Chloe's perspective. Jacob Vance, the boy next door, was always alone. He wore faded hand-me-down clothes and stayed quiet in the corners like a little weed nobody noticed. He looked so lonely. I decided I should be his friend. We were neighbors, after all. So I climbed over that low wall and gave him a piece of my favorite candy, the kind my mom bought just for me. He was so shy when he took it. His face turned bright red, like a scared little rabbit. He was cute. After that, we became best friends, inseparable. We walked to school together, walked home together, did our homework together, and ran wild in the fields. Everyone said we were childhood sweethearts, a perfect match. He was always trailing silently behind me like a shadow. I'd chatter on, and he'd just listen, nodding once in a while. He was so quiet and serious, so I nicknamed him Stony. Back then, I just thought it was nice to have a friend like him. Didn't talk much, but he was dependable. If anyone ever picked on me, he'd be the first one to step in. He usually couldn't win a fight, but he would always use his own body to shield me. When we got to junior high, the world suddenly got bigger, more colorful. The teacher actually assigned me to tutor the class troublemaker, Alex Thorne. Alex, the mayor's son, the king of the school. He rode a loud, obnoxious motorcycle that drove me crazy at first. I hated him. He was a slick, smug jerk who was always teasing me. But after a while, I started to realize he wasn't so bad. He had this fearless, rebellious swagger that was so different from my quiet, dependable Stony. He was like a wild wind, dangerous and thrilling, and he blew right into my quiet life. He'd take me for rides on that obnoxious motorcycle to places I'd never been. The feeling of the wind on my face was exhilarating, freeing. He told me stories about the world outside our small town and always found a way to make me laugh. He seemed to know everything, to be able to do anything. Life with him was never boring. I think I was starting to fall for him. I started living for the final bell, for the moment I could jump on the back of his motorcycle and feel my heart race. Schoolwork? I forgot all about it. I know it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. Jacob tried to talk to me at the coffee shop. He carefully asked if Alex was a bad influence. What was I thinking then? I thought he was a spy sent by my mother, that he was trying to control me, to ruin things between me and Alex. I was so angry, so defensive that I just blew up at him. I said so many horrible things. Thinking back on it now, I was so stupid, so blind. I completely ignored the worry and pain in his eyes. When he looked at me, I took his concern for judgment. One night, Alex took me out on his motorcycle again. He wanted to go exploring at the abandoned steel mill east of town, said it was a thrill at night. Inside the pitch-black mill, the only light was from his headlight. Suddenly, bam, we hit something. The light swung over, and there was a man on the ground in a security guard's uniform. It was old Mr. Henderson. He wasn't moving. A dark pool of liquid was spreading out from under him. I was paralyzed with fear. My mind went blank. I couldn't even scream. Alex was panicked too, but he kept his head. He grabbed my arm and told me to call Jacob to get him to come help. He said Jacob was smart, that he'd know what to do. I had completely lost the ability to think. Like a puppet, I shakily dialed Jacob's number. "Stoney, you have to come to the mill." I don't even remember what I said. But as soon as I hung up, Alex was pushing me, telling me to go home, that he'd handle it, that a girl shouldn't be involved. And I, blinded by fear and my stupid trust in Alex, believed him. I ran home like a coward, leaving Jacob to walk into that nightmare alone. In the middle of the night, I was woken by shouting and crying outside. The neighbors were saying Jacob hit Mr. Henderson with his bike, that the police arrested him. Impossible. Jacob, he wouldn't even hurt a fly. It was Alex. I ran next door to Jacob's house and heard his mother's heart-wrenching screams. The sound was like a hot iron searing my soul. My head cleared in an instant. Alex had lied to me. He didn't just kill someone. He planned to frame Jacob. He had used me. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let Jacob take the fall for him. I ran, shaking, to the payphone on the corner and anonymously reported Alex. I told the police he was the real killer, told them to check his motorcycle for evidence. After the call, I wanted to run to Jacob's mom, to tell her Jacob was innocent, that he would be home soon. But before I could get to her door, I heard the news. Jacob's mother. She couldn't handle the shock of her son being arrested for murder. On her way to the police station, she had collapsed. The shock had killed her. My legs gave out. I crumpled to the cold ground, shaking, tears streaming down my face. It was all my fault. If I hadn't been so stupid, so blind, if I hadn't made that phone call, if I had just woken up sooner, gone to the police myself, she wouldn't be dead. Jacob wouldn't have been framed. It was only in that moment that I finally, painfully understood the way Jacob looked at me. His unconditional tolerance, his careful devotion. He had always been in love with me, silently, for so many years. And I, the person he had treasured above all else, had personally pushed him into the abyss and destroyed his life. I knew then that Jacob and I were over. Between us now was not just a misunderstanding but a life. The life of the person he loved most in the world. It was a chasm I could never cross. Years passed. I ran away from that town, carrying all my guilt and regret. Through some twist of fate, I ended up in entertainment, and with a decent face, I became a starlet, Chloe Davis. Under the spotlights, I wore beautiful gowns and perfect makeup and smiled for the cameras. But only I knew that my heart had a wound that would never heal, that bled every single night, reminding me of my sin. I thought I would never see Jacob again until that glittering gala. He had changed so much. The shy, insecure boy was gone, replaced by a man in an expensive, tailored suit. He was cool and powerful, the legendary self-made chairman of Vance Technologies. Standing beside him was a sharp, beautiful woman, his right hand, Stella Hayes. They looked perfect together. In that moment, I was seized by both joy and terror. I wanted to go to him, to talk to him, to explain, to say I was sorry. But when he saw me, his eyes turned to ice, filled with an undisguised hatred and disgust. He flinched away from me, then turned and practically ran. He avoided me like I was a disease. My heart froze. I couldn't let it in like that. I had to explain. I couldn't let him live the rest of his life hating me for something that wasn't the whole truth. I found his company's address and worked up all the courage I had to go there. But I never even saw him. That woman, Stella, stopped me. She had a professional smile, but her words were a gentle knife that severed all my hope. She said she was Jacob's assistant and his girlfriend. She said Jacob didn't want to see me at all. I frantically tried to argue, telling her it wasn't what he thought, that Alex had tricked me,